call me Pounds, here I'm known as 9-7. 8 customs create, plus I rhyme great.
Oi, YouTube, oshimasu nakato yoshimasu. That is not Japanese. Sorry, y'all. YouTube, what's happening? Welcome back to another Spider-Man video, and today we got the Bandai Samurai Spider-Man. This is my first Bandai figure. I've never owned a Bandai figure before, so having this is something of an experiment of some sorts, because I'm thinking maybe it'll look good with the rest of the Spider-Man, but upon further inspection, I don't think so. It may be a little too large, but here's the back, and it does have some cool image shots in the back. Looks pretty good for a Samurai and Spider-Man, although it doesn't make too much sense. But we'll let it go for this review. And I think the design looks pretty cool. I don't understand any of these words. Looks like an import figure, but because it was sold at Barnes & Noble and GameStop, it's not. Now let's open this big box and see what's inside. It opens up like a board game. Top just comes off, and then you have this tray, this plastic tray holding all the pieces in. And it looks good. I'm not gonna lie. It looks really detailed. So I'm very impressed with the looks. It comes with also this sheet of paper to let you know how to swap hands, and you know, if you want to take the belt off and things like that. So it comes in handy, but I won't be needing this. I kind of know how to move the hands already. So let's take this out. Oh, this tray's a pain in the butt to get out, but once you get it out, you have your figure and his accessories. Now, here's the accessories that come with the figure. You see you have 2 grappling hook chains, which kind of substitute for webs. That's pretty dope. You get the sword and the sword holder. You get 2 whip hands, 2 open hands. You get 2 grip hands, and then 2 fists. So have fun with those. You guys know what to do with these accessories, right? I don't have to demonstrate all of them for you. I mean, we can take a look at the more unusual parts, like the sword, for example. Spider-Man doesn't really carry a sword, so we'll take a look at this. And it is done well. It's pretty sharp. It's not too pointy, but it is pretty sharp. And it has a peg right here at this holster, so you can peg it right on his back, and you can give it some sort of articulation. The grip as well is done pretty nice. Has these like beads on the grip and a spider, which is sculpted and painted nice. The silver on the sword is molded pretty nice. This ball peg can be annoying on his back, but it does allow some articulation when it's on his back. You can angle it and turn it side to side. This is just a fist with green webbing on it. I don't know why it's green webbing. Black would have been better, but I think green makes it pop, so that's okay. And then you get this grip hand here. This is one of these sword holding hands, and it fits in there really snug, so when you put the grip in, it shouldn't shift around. It should hold on pretty tight, so that works really well. Then you get some open hands. These are like more open than the grip hand. You can't grip the sword with it. You could probably grip the sword holster with it. It's really good for not the sword grip handle, but it's good for the red part. Then you get the whip hands. You guys know what whip hands are for. It probably would look good with these grappling hooks. And these grappling hooks are pretty cool. They are made out of metal. The end hooks are not. These are plastic, but they are pretty sharp, and they will get caught in like your clothes. So be careful with these chains. But they are done and crafted pretty well. So I am pleased with these. I think you guys will be too. You get a good amount of swappable hands, a sword, and 2 chains. I like it. 2 chains! If Spider-Man was a samurai, this is what Bandai assumes he would look like. And I don't mind the design. I think it looks like a samurai. The eyes bug me a little bit. They don't seem Spider-Man-ish. They just seem like, I don't know. I think I've seen the Captain America and the Iron Man, and the eyes are very similar on those too. So the eyes aren't unique, and so I don't really like that on this figure. The red looks cool. That spider in the front also looks really cool. I do like the shingles, or whatever you want to call them, at the waist. Those are pretty nice. The blue on the pants look pretty cool. I mean, I don't know. Now looking at it, I guess the green does pop on top of the red and blue, so I like that choice, I guess. You get some articulated shoulder pads. I'll show you how they work in a few, and I think that's pretty neat. This little flap under his jaw that covers his neck area is also articulated. I don't know how useful that is, but it is pretty cool to have on it. So I mean I like this figure, but for the price that it cost, I think this figure was like $90. From what I seen at GameStop, it was $90, and I would never pay $90 for this figure. I mean, maybe you guys will. I actually got this figure from a trade from someone who won it, supposedly from Shartimus Prime. So shout out to you for trading me this. I traded a Mysterio for it, and shout out to Shartimus Prime for giving it away. I think this was worth the Mysterio, brand new Mysterio. I had 3 of them, so I'm okay with it. But there was a sale going on at Barnes & Noble, and this figure was popping up at 15 bucks. So if anybody was lucky to find it at 15 bucks, you guys are lucky. I definitely paid 15 for, I would definitely pay 15 for it. At the most, I'd probably pay 30 for it, but I wouldn't pay $90 for this figure. It's crazy. And now they just popped out with a Wolverine that's supposed to come out. And it looks cool, too. It's probably one of the better ones out of the 4 that I've seen, but I still don't think it's worth $90. This figure is about 8 inches tall. It's a little taller than the average Marvel Legend, so keep that in mind if you decide to buy him to pair up with the rest of your Spider-Man. That's why I think it's a little out of sync, but you can crouch him or put him in certain positions that make him look in scale with the rest of your Legends. Keep him in the background or something. But I am pleased with how he looks as far as the samurai concept goes. It's just that it doesn't say Spider-Man on it at all. The only thing that resembles a Spider-Man is the webbing and the spider on his chest. If it wasn't for those 2 things, this could be anybody. The articulation is unique, I guess. I mean, I don't want to say unique, but compared to a Marvel Legend, it is slightly different. This waist diaphragm goes down pretty much. I mean, that's like, it functions as the ab crunch in the waist swivel. You get double jointed knees. This is a pretty fair articulated figure. It's actually articulated really good. The only problem is this little back piece. It bugs me. It comes out a lot. It pops out when it wants. But it is articulate, so you can move it around and have the sword in any position you want. But it does fall. But you shouldn't have any problem posing this guy around because he does have fairly good articulation, and you can put him in any position you would put any of your Marvel Legends in. In fact, you probably squeeze a couple more out of this guy. But it is a nice figure, and I am happy to own it. Again, I wouldn't pay the price for, I wouldn't pay what it costs, but I am happy to own this figure. So there are people who really love these figures, though. So I'm not putting this figure down. I like it a lot. I just don't think it's very Spider-Man-ish. I don't know. It's just not. But let's compare this Bandai Spider-Man to a Marvel Legends. And right now we have Scarlet Spider-Man right beside Bandai Samurai. And you can see the scale is totally different. Again, if you put Samurai in the background, he may look in scale. I mean, even with the biggest Spider-Man we have, he's still a little too big. Imagine putting this guy in it. So, scaling is a little floppy. Now the shoulder articulation is very similar to a Marvel Legend. I mean, you do get the head that goes up pretty high. And it does go down pretty far. So you do get that up and down movement. You can also go left and right. It does swivel at 360 degrees. You get a little pivot, some attitude there, so that's okay too. Right at the neck. But this flap here I was mentioning earlier does articulate as well. If you keep his head up, you can flap it down. Or if you keep his head down, it stays down. So, it's all up to you. These shoulder pads are also pretty cool, but they are frustrating, I guess. They are attached on these ball joints. Well, there's a ball joint on the arm, and it just swivels from this shoulder pad. And me sometimes moving it, I end up, see what I mean about the sword too? Sometimes moving this shoulder, it pops off, and I'm trying, see? This figure has a tendency to fall apart in certain places, like the arm and mainly the waist. But not to worry, they aren't hard to put back in. It's just a ball joint. You just sock it right inside. And you can get this arm back to its normal position. It does kind of have this like tiny hinge right there, so you get a little bit of range without having to use the swivel or the joint. But that's as high as you're going to get it. You do swivel at that bicep if you wanted to. This is pretty interesting. The elbow joint kind of swivels inside. If you turn it, you can get a little motion out of it. It's not too useful, but it is there. Then you get the double jointed elbow. You get this forearm swivel as well. Wrist swivels and hinges. And this hinge is pretty far back, so that is cool. But what is not cool is this diaphragm joint. I mean, it functions really well, but just don't pull on it too much. You can pull it forward, and it does go down a lot. But if you pull it back too much, it will pop off like so. And it is really frustrating to get back on because of these two waist pieces. You get the shoulder. You get the armor in the front and the armor in the back, and it is super, not thick, but when you put them both together, they can cause a problem in putting it back. This is how the articulation is at the waist. It is a little different. You have this like peg that is on a swivel that pops up and down, and you can just plug it in without the waist pieces. I find this to have a tiny bit of more articulation, except it just looks ridiculous. Without those two waist pieces though, he does move further down and further back. So you can get some cooler or more flexible articulation without those pieces. And if you pose them right, you can kind of hide it. So for the right picture, you can kind of hide it, but I don't recommend it. I'd rather just deal with the frustration of these two waist pieces that seem to not be as easy to put on as they were to take off. So putting this thing back on is annoying. I hate it. But these legs will give you almost a full split. Well, pretty fair enough for a samurai in full gear, so that's impressive. His legs kick up pretty high. He does get a little range back, not much. A little bit. And then these double jointed knees work pretty well. I'm surprised. You can't even see the joint inside the bottom, on the bottom of the joint, but very good functionality though. A desirable feature in an action figure, so I'm happy that's there. You get this ball hinge in this ankle a little bit. You can turn it. It does hinge up and down, and it has the ankle pivot as well. It's not too great, but it is there, and you can use it. Then you have this toe articulation for no reason. I don't understand. Toe articulation never really mattered to me. Sorry, guys. Well, I will also mention these web shooters on the wrist. They do come off. It's like soft, rubbery, or softer plastic. And you can replace them with these chains because they have their own web shooters attached to them. So, like so, you can just put it on and squeeze it in because it is really tight. It fits in there like perfectly. Once you got that in snug, you grab your whip hand or your grip hand. Depends on what you want to do. For now, I'm just going to grab a whip hand and poke it in. This is a little tight because I've never used this whip hand. But once it's on, you can take this grapple hook or I don't know, this chain and hook, and you can connect it to something and make it appear as if he's shooting his web, because in these times his web wouldn't work. Or you can have him swinging like this. Not a bad figure. Again, it's a bit too pricey for me, but if you can find it cheap, definitely I recommend it. After watching Shartimus's review again, he wasn't sure if this was a knockoff or not, so I don't know if this is a knockoff or not. And I hope it's not. I hope I didn't just trade a Mysterio for a knockoff Samurai Spider-Man. Is it worth it? Probably still is worth it. Whatever. For YouTube, if you like this video and you want to see more Spider-Man action figures and Spider-Man customs, feel free to click that like button. Hit that subscribe button for more content. Hit the notification bell if you want to get it early. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks.